Right. So, what we have here is a, oh gosh, it says here, and I bring this thing out and then forget the model number on it. 500, right? It's Coleman 500, pretty sure. Where's my, yeah, 500A. Damn, embarrassing. Anyway, yeah, Coleman 500A stove. Really a great stove, and also a little bit greasy. I use this one for doing stuff like searing things outdoors. I got a cast iron skillet I set on here, and I'll sear everything off, and that way I don't smoke up the house or make a big mess on the stove. And we all know that we want to keep the wife as happy as possible. And as I sit here, I realize that I've not set up my fan for the day, so give me a second here while I do that. Sorry about that. But anyway, there we go. That'll keep me from catching on fire. Although the temperatures are coming down in here in Texas, let's see, 87 in the shop today, a relative humidity of 76%, so still kind of a bit steamy, but nonetheless, things are getting better now that we're finally into September. And I also want to say, I hope everyone had a good Labor Day. You're probably wondering, well, gosh, why didn't we see video show up on Monday? Well, it's because I didn't do one on Sunday. Because I had some friends that did we had a little get together, so I was busy with that instead of shooting the video or whatever like I should have. So this is like one of the first ones that I picked up early on in my collecting career, and when I got it, it wasn't working, and it had an interesting mark on the label, which you can see here. And that mark is lined up pretty much exactly with this. And what had happened is that this, the fuel tube here had cracked. And so what you're seeing here is the fuel that dripped down and caught on fire at some point. So someone had an interesting evening or day or whatever. Nonetheless, that's what happened with that. And so I have soldered over the crack. Probably not the best way to repair it, but honestly, since it is it's held pretty solid most of the time there, I don't think it'll have any problems. I realize there may be some expansion and contraction going on here, but nonetheless, it's probably fine. And if it's not, well, I guess that's a risk that I accept. But nonetheless, the problem here that we're having is that this is just not holding pressure. And I scavenged a cap and replaced the gasket from a 200A, you can see it's red, because I had to cook some stuff up the other day. So I did this, cranked it down nice and tight, and pumped it up, and everything worked great. But I was like, oh yeah, I gotta pump it again. And then the next day I came and I opened the valve, or not the valve, but opened the fuel cap, and I had no pressure release, unlike I just did there, because of course there hasn't been any time for it to leak down. So somewhere in here is a bit of a leak, and I'm guessing it's probably where the fuel pickup screws into the fount. So to be able to get to that, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to tear this down to get all the way down to that point. So this is going to be another multi-part video. Otherwise, it'd be getting to be very, very long. But nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and start getting into this here, and basically just have to disassemble the cage. Let's see. Hopefully, we have. See, I'm working with unfamiliar sizes here, so now this is see. It's just not right. It goes from too big to too small. Yeah, somewhere in between 5/8, 5/16 and 3/8. So we go with one of these, I guess, which I hate to use, but nonetheless, they do work. So we'll get this on here. Everything should come off pretty easy because I have had this thing apart before. So I don't anticipate a whole lot of trouble pulling this apart. So we'll get our spare parts trays out here so we can capture all of the nuts and screws that we're going to get, because there are going to be a few of them, and see if we can't get this this leak tracked down. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a dunk test on this, and get it off. I also noted I was getting a little bit of yellow flame, and that may be due to some obstructions in the burner tube assembly here. And I may actually end up painting this base here because it does, it is really kind of rusty. I may do some cleanup on that. So we'll do an interesting restoration on this because I really like this thing, and I really want to get it to the point to where it's in nice shape. And but you know, I leave it on my back patio because that's where my tools, cooking tools, and all this other kind of stuff sits. So that's where it is, and so it gets a little, you know, it's completely protected from the rain and the elements, so that's great. But it still manages to get a little bit rusty. So I think what I'll probably end up doing with this one, you know, the collar on this looks to be in good shape. This is very annoying. There we go. Anyway, the collar on this looks to be in really good shape, so it's probably not going to need nothing other than a light touch with some steel wool to get some of the surface corrosion off of it. And then we'll be good to go. So this should just kind of come off of here with a little bit of convincing. No. Come on. You can do it. There we go. Okay. Right. Yeah, this is a little bit bent up too, so even though it doesn't look really all that straight now, it looked a whole lot worse when I got a hold of it. So we've got quite a bit of rust and other stuff, and what I really want to do is I want to get this off. Now, I tried to get this off previously when I first did this, but this was before I got into understanding the whole point of having enough heat. So I'm going to get the big giant screwdriver, and this one should fit into this quite nicely. Yep, which looks like it. We're going to try to see if we can get it to turn because it's been used a few times, but no, it doesn't want to move. So we're going to do the heat trick. Since this is all cast iron, you don't want to like completely focus the heat on one spot. So I'm kind of trying to warm up the whole area generally. But we definitely want to focus on the screw up here and try to get that as hot as possible. You'll notice the rust changes from red to more of a black color as it gets hot. It's because you're driving the oxygen off from it. So you can kind of get an idea of how hot things are getting when you start seeing them turn black. They'll obviously go back to red as they reabsorb oxygen from the air later. Well, let's see if we get lucky. I sure would like to have this off because I've never got it off. So let's see. Come on, baby. Nope. A little more heat. Because I kind of wonder with the occasional flames that I'm seeing shooting out of this, if it doesn't have to deal with something built a spider web in here, because this is the air intake for the burner is underneath the shield here. Okay, let's try that. Nope. That's bad too, because now it just slipped out. That's disappointing. That's super disappointing. So here you can see my shame as it has rotated out of there. So that is really unfortunate. And I guess with that one, I'm just going to let the sleeping dogs lie on that, I suppose. Probably what'll have to happen is it would be like basically grind the screw head off, get an easy out thread extractor, and try to pull it out that way. Really, one of the first times I've ever had a fail with the with using heat on here, so that's really disappointing. So, but that's all right. We'll just continue to move on from here. So of course now everything is like smoking hot. So that's going to be another level of challenge. But we'll go ahead and persevere anyway. So get the generator off of here. And let's see, so that's got the cleaning needle. Yeah, it's been so long since I pulled this one apart, so right, I need to disconnect the fuel. That's not really a 1/2 inch, so we're gonna have to use this. Okay. I always like to hold these things so that way when you do get it loose, you're not completely tweaking it. And then the next thing is the locking nut up top, which just needs to be loosened a little bit. So I hopefully try not to mangle everything. Looks like we got some pressure in here as everything suddenly comes apart. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get this the rest of the way off so we can get out of here. So this is why you don't loosen your generator before taking off the valve. So I did bend that a little bit. So that's pretty straight. So set this aside here. Generator doesn't have anything in it, which is great. I may go ahead and pull this apart to see if there's any. Let's see if we can hook the spring in there. Oh yeah, spring seems to be very free. So yeah, there's like no buildup of carbon on this whatsoever. So that generator is good for quite a long time. Next steps are to get this off of here. So we're gonna these come off easy because I've had them off before, so they're not a problem. Man, that really bums me out about that the one on the top. I thought I had it, but I did not. Well, as you know on the channel here, I show the good and the bad. So if I make mistakes, then maybe y'all can learn from them too. So, all right, so this is off of here. That all still looks to be pretty good shape. We'll just set those aside. I could really use another parts tray, but this will work. Right, so as I'm going through this, I'm remembering this cast iron burner actually screws on from the underside, and this whole top plate is held on with these screws here. So screw number 1 and screw number 2, and then everything should come off quite nicely. Yep, this just lifts right off. So yeah, and this is where it's screwed on from the bottom. So this wasn't painted, it was plated. So it originally looked like this. Of course now it looks like this. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some high temperature paint and paint this plate here so it won't completely rust away to nothing, because I can see some areas where here it's kind of flaking off a little bit, and we don't want that to happen. So we're going to go ahead and just set that down. Here you can kind of see the whole lighting system on it and how that works. So it has a lever that's right here. This is how you control the fuel air system with this. So that's what actually drives the rod up and down inside the valve assembly. So you basically turn it to the right to light, and then once it stops giving you kind of pulsating flames and burns clean and blue, then you flip it over to this side to burn, and then it'll work just fine. So basically your knob here on the right, well, this stove actually works very much like all the other Coleman stoves that have a separate starting lever. It's just that in the other ones, like the 502s, you don't really have a starting lever. You have a cleaning lever, and you use that like that. And I happen to have a 502 sitting right here, and that's exactly what it is. So this is nothing more than a cleaning lever, but you can also it just doesn't it doesn't work the same way. It has a fuel air tube in here that's controlled by the valve, just like one of your traditional, a little bit of leakage there, one of your traditional lanterns, same kind of thing. So that brings us to this point, to where we want to get this off of here. So a little bit of finagling and cajoling, and we can get that off. And this is basically how they're supposed to look. I don't want to have this polished up too much. Maybe just a little bit of the some of the corrosion removed. I mean, I might just really, let's see what happens. We just kind of lightly rub it with some of the steel wool here, because I just want to get that kind of rough feeling off of it. Yeah, and that's pretty, yeah, that looks actually a lot better. So that's just going from kind of like looking like this to looking more like this. Again, it's like the idea is not to over restore it. It's just to kind of make it maybe look a little less grungy. So at this point here, what I need to do is get rid of the fuel that's in here. And yeah, I've got some I need to get rid of here that is really nasty. So we're going to spin that around, and then we're going to just quickly pour that off into here. Trying to remember what liner this one was from, but anyway, so we're going to go ahead and dump the fuel into this. And we still have a little wire here. If you don't have this in here, then it'll never let the air out when you try to fill it. So we'll go ahead and dump all this fuel out. Oh yeah, there's a bunch of nastiness in there. Yeah, quite a bit actually. So that's fine. We'll get that cleaned out and set aside here. Take this, set this aside. And so now what we want to do is we want to pressure test this. So that means that we need to do a dunk test with some water. And of course, after pumping this up, now it's only a little bit more complicated by the fact that there is no valving here. The valve is here. So in order to do this, I've got to basically reinstall this on here and very carefully stick all of this under water, and then look for bubbles, because this is the only way that I can pressurize the tank. Now I can pressurize it, and it'll hold, whereas before I would just get a lot of fuel spray out of here, which I may still get. See if it will do that. Yeah, a little bit of fuel spray. So yeah, so this is where I suspect it may be leaking, is from here, which is right where where that valve screws into the fountain. So right, next step is to find a bucket and dunk it in some water. Let's go do that. Okay, so we've got our bucket of water, and we got me trying to figure out how I'm going to show this to you guys. So probably, of course, fan is a necessity. Probably the best way to do this, and we'll clear a little bit of space off of here. Set this on the back bench. And we're going to go ahead and set this bucket up here, which is in varying stages of disrepair. I know you can't see in here, but we'll move you around so you can take a look. So what I need to do is put this valve back on here, so that way I can pressurize the tank, and hopefully I'm not going to damage anything while I do this, because yeah, it's not exactly the way this was intended to be used, right? So let's see, get this on here nice and tight, so we'll have a airtight seal. We'll give this some pumpage. This is closed off, that's great. Okay, that should be enough. And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to put the whole valve in here, this one, just to the top of the fount. And hopefully we don't see any bubbles coming out of the fount itself. So let's see, do we see? Oh, yep. That is disappointing. The fount has got a hole in it. So let me show you what I'm seeing. If you'll watch right here, when we get it underwater, you can see the bubbles. And of course I can also see that my repair on the fuel line has also kind of failed. Whoops, that's probably super close. But that one I can fix. This one, the hole in the fount, is unfixable. So that kind of relegates this one to being a shelf queen, because there's not much that you can do about that. So sadly, this video is going to come to an end rather quickly. Try not to make y'all too dizzy, because yeah, this fount is trashed, and unless I can find another fount for a 500A laying around by its lonesome, there's no hope for this one. It's very sad. So that is kind of it. So I was hoping to have this one end up with a little bit of a reseal around this, but unfortunately that's not how it's going to go. So but you know what, this is why you do dunk tests on these older ones. And honestly, it looks like at some point it had an impact there, because there is a bit of bright metal right there. So yeah, very unfortunate, but nonetheless, hey, now we know. And maybe I get lucky and I find another fount for a 502 that's just laying about. Anyway, that's it for this episode here. So until next time, keep them lit.